I called Dad frivolous because he left us, and later I worked hard to support mother and sister, but after a conflict they kicked me out, and now Dad wants to meet and tell me. I was 24 when my father left us. 1 minute, everything seemed normal, at least as normal as it could be in our house. The next, he was gone. No long explanations, no drawn-out arguments, just a quiet announcement at the dinner table that he was tired of it all and couldn't do it anymore. Then he left. It didn't make sense at the time. My dad was the glue that held us together, or so I thought. Sure, he worked long hours and seemed exhausted most of the time, but who wouldn't be? My mom didn't work, and my sister Kelly spent most of her time doing whatever Kelly felt like doing. I guess he thought I could step up and fill his shoes. But I didn't see it that way. I was furious. I called him reckless, irresponsible, every name I could think of at the time. I told him that real men don't just leave their families, no matter how hard things get. He didn't say much back, just that he was tired and couldn't take it anymore. And that was it. I never saw him again. For the next year, I worked 2 jobs, barely slept, and rarely saw my friends. I paid the bills, bought groceries, and even paid the vet bills for Kelly's dog, a little much she refused to take care of but wouldn't let go of. I thought maybe my mom or sister would pitch in eventually, but they never did. Instead, they told me it was my responsibility. "You're a man, and men provide," my mother said more than once. "Get used to it. This is what family life is all about." Kelly was no better. She lived her life as if nothing had changed, acting annoyed when I couldn't drop everything to help her with something. I kept pushing through, thinking things would get better eventually, but they didn't. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Thursday and I had just gotten home from my second shift. Exhausted, I threw my dinner plate in the sink and went to my room. I figured I'd deal with it later, but Kelly wouldn't have it. "You can't even wash your own dishes?" she yelled, loud enough to wake the neighborhood. "You think just because you pay the bills you don't have to clean up after yourself?" I snapped. I told her she was selfish and lazy, and that if she wanted to live in a clean house, she could start pulling her weight. Of course, my mom overheard, and she came storming in, taking Kelly's side as usual. "How dare you talk to your sister like that? You think you're so much better than us just because you work?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After all I'd done for them, they had the nerve to act like I was the problem. I told them exactly how I felt, that they were using me and didn't appreciate anything I did. That's when my mom said the words that cut deeper than anything else that night. "Maybe you should go after your father. We don't need you here. We'll be fine without you." Fine, I thought. Let's see how you do. I packed a bag and left that night. I checked into a cheap hotel that night, feeling like the weight of the world had finally crushed me. I didn't cry, but I couldn't sleep either. 4 hours I just stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had happened. I thought about my mom's words, the way Kelly stood there with her arms folded, smiling like she'd won. It didn't feel like a victory to me. It felt like I'd lost everything. In the morning I realized I couldn't go back. Not after what they said. They didn't need me? Fine. But I sure as hell needed something or someone. My thoughts drifted to my father. I hadn't spoken to him since he left, but at that moment I couldn't shake the idea of calling him. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was desperation, but I wanted to know if he'd take me in. If he'd managed to find a new life, maybe I could be a part of it, too. I spent an hour staring at his number in my contacts. I hadn't deleted it, but I hadn't used it either. What would he think if I called him out of the blue? After all the things I had said to him, why should he even answer? But what did I have to lose? When he answered, his voice was different, calmer, perhaps. Almost as if he'd been expecting the call. "Dad, it's me," I said. There was a pause. Then, "I was wondering if I'd ever hear from you." The conversation was awkward at first. I told him about everything, working myself to death, the constant demands of Mom and Kelly, the fight that led to my leaving. I tried to keep it factual, but I could feel the anger slipping through. I told him how much it hurt to be used, to be treated like I was nothing but a paycheck. When I finished, there was another long silence. I thought maybe he was going to tell me that I'd made my bed and I had to lie in it. Instead, he sighed. "Why don't you come over?" he said. "We can really talk." I agreed. He gave me an address, his new place. It was only a few hours away. As soon as I hung up, I packed my things and checked out of the hotel. The drive felt surreal. A year ago, I would have sworn I'd never see him again. Now, here I was, walking right up to his front door. When I arrived, the house wasn't what I'd expected. It was modest, but nice, a place that looked like home. My father came out to greet me, looking a little older, a little grayer, but also healthier. With him was a woman I didn't recognize. She smiled warmly and introduced herself as Jessica, his wife. It was a lot to take in, but I kept it together. Inside, I told Dad everything again, this time in more detail. I didn't hold back. When I finished, he sat back in his chair and rubbed his temples as if the weight of the world had just landed on him. "I thought this might happen," he said finally. "That's why I left." That stopped me cold. "What do you mean?" He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something I hadn't seen before: regret. "I didn't leave because I was tired of life or because I didn't love you. I left because they used me, too. Your mother, your sister, they never gave anything back, no matter how much I gave them. I thought maybe without me they'd realize what they had. I guess they didn't." I sat there, stunned. For years I had told myself that my father was selfish, that he had abandoned us because he didn't care. Now he was telling me he left because he couldn't stand being used anymore. "You were right about one thing," he said. "A man shouldn't leave his family. But there's a difference between being a man and being a doormat." I didn't understand that then. Sounds like you're figuring it out now. I didn't know what to say. For the first time in a long time, I felt like someone actually understood what I'd been through. I stayed at my dad's house that night. Jessica had made dinner, and it was the first home-cooked meal I'd had in what felt like forever. She was nothing like my mom, warm, easy to talk to, genuinely interested in my life. It was strange to see my father with someone like her. For the longest time I thought he wasn't capable of being that relaxed or happy. But here he was, laughing at Jessica's jokes and asking me if I wanted seconds. After dinner, we sat on the porch with a couple of beers. I was still reeling from everything he'd told me earlier. "So how long have you guys been married?" I asked. "A little over 6 months," he said. "We met about a year after I left. Took me a while to feel like I deserved something like this." I nodded, taking it in. It was hard to imagine him starting over, but it was even harder to imagine him staying in the life he described. "I didn't see it then," I said after a long pause. "I thought you were just running away. But now..." I trailed off, not sure how to finish the sentence. "Now you get it," he said softly. I nodded again. We talked for hours that night. He told me more about what it had been like before he left, how he'd spent years trying to hold things together. He said he'd felt trapped, like no matter how much he gave, it was never enough. And when he finally reached his breaking point, leaving felt like the only way to save himself. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked. He took a long sip of his beer before answering. "I regret not handling it differently. But staying? No. If I had stayed, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be a shell of what I should be." That hit me hard. For months I'd been teetering on the edge, wondering if I was strong enough to keep going. Hearing him say that made me realize that I didn't have to. I wasn't a bad person to walk away from. When I went to bed that night, I slept better than I had in years. The next morning, Jessica knocked on my door and asked if I wanted to join her for breakfast. Over pancakes and coffee, she told me about her work as a nurse and how she and Dad met. She was kind, funny, and everything I hadn't expected. After breakfast, Dad pulled me aside. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need to," he said. "This is your home, too." It was the first time in a long time that I felt like I actually had a home. Over the next few weeks, I began to settle in. I got a job at a nearby warehouse, nothing fancy, but it gave me enough to start saving. Dad and I spent a lot of time talking, and for the first time I felt like I was getting to know him as a person, not just a guy who used to pay the bills. A few months went by, and one night after work, I got a text from my mom. It was the first time I'd heard from her since I'd left. "I miss you," she wrote. "We need you. I'm sorry for everything." I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to forgive her, to go back and try to make things right. But another part of me remembered all the nights I came home exhausted, only to be met with more demands. I showed Dad the note. "What are you going to do?" he asked. "I don't know yet," I said. And I didn't. I came home from work one Friday, expecting the usual quiet evening. But when I pulled into the driveway, there was a car I didn't recognize parked outside. Inside, I found my mother standing in the living room. She was clutching her purse tightly, her eyes darting between my dad and Jessica, who both looked uncomfortable. "Mom?" I asked, confused and surprised. She turned to me, her face softening in a way that made me suspicious. "I needed to see you," she said. "You weren't answering my texts." Jessica got up and quietly left the room, but Dad stayed where he was, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed. "I have nothing to say to you," I said. "I just want to apologize," she said quickly, her voice shaking. "For the way we treated you, for pushing you away. We miss you. Please, can't we just talk?" I looked at Dad. He didn't say anything, but the look on his face told me it was my choice. "Fine," I said. "Talk." She started to explain, saying that she and Kelly were ashamed and wanted to make things right. She sounded sincere, but I couldn't tell if it was remorse or just desperation. When she finished, I said, "I'll think about it." She nodded, tears in her eyes, and after a few awkward goodbyes, she left. Dad gave a low whistle after the door closed. "That was something." "Yeah," I said, staring at the door. Something about her visit didn't sit right with me, but I couldn't figure out what it was. The days after my mother's visit felt strange. Her apology played over and over in my head. I wanted to believe her, but something about it didn't feel right. If she really wanted to make things right, why now? Why show up out of the blue instead of waiting for me to respond to her texts? I hadn't told her I was coming back, but that didn't stop the messages from coming in. "Thanks for hearing me out. Kelly would love to see you, too. We really mean it, we're sorry." I ignored them. I needed time to think. One night I brought it up with Dad. "Do you think she means it?" I asked. He didn't answer right away. "Maybe," he finally said. "But just because someone's sorry doesn't mean they've changed. You have to find out if she's doing it for you or for herself." That stuck with me. Was this about repairing the damage they'd done, or was she just trying to assuage her own guilt? A week later I got another text, but this one was different. "Please come over. We need to talk. It's important." I stared at the message for a long time. It didn't feel like another apology. Something about it made my stomach turn. When I showed it to Dad, he frowned. "Sounds like there's more to this than she's letting on. What do you think I should do?" He shrugged. "That's up to you. But if you go, don't let her pull you back into the same patterns. You worked hard to get out. Don't lose that." I nodded, but I still wasn't sure what to do. Part of me wanted to ignore her, but another part, the curious part, was itching to find out what she meant. After a lot of back and forth in my head, I decided to go. Something about my mom's text was bothering me. If it was important enough to push so hard, I figured I should at least hear what she had to say. When I got to the house, it felt strange to be back. The place looked the same, but I didn't feel like I belonged there anymore. My mom greeted me at the door with an almost desperate smile, and Kelly was sitting on the couch scrolling through her phone like nothing had happened. "Thanks for coming," my mom said as she led me inside. "We're so glad you're here." I sat down, already nervous. "What's this about?" My mom looked at Kelly, who finally looked up. They exchanged a look, and then my mom took a deep breath. "Kelly's been working so hard lately," she began, which was news to me. "And she has her heart set on something big. She's been dreaming about getting a car, something reliable, you know? But we just don't have enough money saved up." I blinked, waiting for her to get to the point. "We were hoping," she continued, her voice cautious, "that maybe you could help out. Just a little. It would mean so much to them." I stared at her, stunned. "You called me here to ask for money? For a car?" Kelly finally spoke up. "It's not just a car, okay? It's my dream car. I've wanted it forever, and I'm so close, but I can't afford it on my own." I felt my blood boil. "You're kidding me, right? I worked my butt off for the two of you and you kicked me out when I had nothing left to give. Now you want me to help you buy a car? It's not like that," my mother said quickly. "We've apologized. We're trying to make things right. This could be a new beginning for all of us." I stood up. "No. A fresh start doesn't mean using me again. You haven't changed, you've just found a new way to ask for more. I'm done." I walked out, ignoring her protests, and drove straight back to my dad's house. When I told him what had happened, he just shook his head. "I'm proud of you," he said. "It's not easy to say no, especially to family. But you did the right thing." After the confrontation, the texts from my mom didn't stop, but they took on a different tone. This time there were no apologies, just guilt trips and passive-aggressive jabs. "I thought families were supposed to help each other. Do you even care about your sister's happiness? Your father must have rubbed off on you. I see it now." I stopped reading them after a while. The bridge was burned, and I had no interest in rebuilding it. But then one night a message came in that made me stop. "You don't know the whole story. Your father is not as innocent as you think." I showed it to Dad, expecting him to dismiss it, but instead he sighed. "Maybe it's time I told you everything," he said. We sat down in the living room, and for the first time he looked uncomfortable. "There's a part of why I left that I haven't told you," he began. "Your mother and Kelly weren't just selfish, they were entitled. I know you saw that. But what you didn't see was how much worse it got behind the scenes." I leaned forward, not sure where this was going. "Your mother never wanted to work," he said. "She told me it wasn't her job. But what you don't know is that she blew through our savings, everything I worked for, to pay for Kelly's whims. Clothes, trips, the dog, which she didn't even take care of. And when I said no, she'd gang up on me, make me feel like I was failing as a husband and father." I clenched my fists, remembering all the times I'd been pushed to the breaking point trying to support her. "There's more," he said. "When I left, I thought maybe it would force them to change, but instead they became vindictive. Their mother tried to take me to court, saying I had abandoned her and Kelly, trying to bleed me dry with alimony and whatever else she could think of. She didn't win, but she left scars." I sat there stunned. "Why didn't you tell me this before? I didn't want you to hate her," he said. "No matter what she's done, she's still your mother. But after what she did to you, I think you deserve to know the truth." It felt like a weight had been lifted. All the years I'd blamed Dad for leaving, all the anger I'd carried, it all started to make sense. "What about Kelly?" I asked. Dad shook his head. "She's your mother's shadow. She learned everything from her, and unless she wakes up one day and sees the world differently, I don't think she'll ever change." I nodded, finally understanding what I had to do. The next day, I blocked my mother and sister's numbers. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. Months went by, and I focused on building a life with my dad and Jessica, who treated me like one of her own. The warehouse job turned into a better position, and I started saving for things I really wanted. One afternoon, while Dad and I were working on his car, he turned to me. "You've come a long way, you know that? You're not just surviving anymore. You're living." He was right. I wasn't just surviving, I was finally thriving. My mother and sister were still a shadow in the back of my mind, but I knew I'd made the right choice. I couldn't keep throwing myself at people who only took. As I wiped the grease off my hands, Dad patted me on the back. You're going to be okay, kid. For the first time in years, I believed him.